Hey, and welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda. This is Wesley. This is Ron, and we're in the car. I needed to do my June wrap up, and I kind of have the books that I read in June divided into 3 different categories. So I thought, why don't I film them in 3 different places? So we are driving up to prepare the room that Price is going to live in at college. So on the way up, I'm going to talk about the first set of books, which are the ones that I own. So, book number 1 of the ones that I own is from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. And this is a middle grade book that I read as part of a vlog that just recently went up. And I read it from my library, but I own it. But because we're in the process of moving, I didn't have it with me, but I still own it. Anyway, these 2 kids decide to run away from home, and they spend quite a bit of time, a little over a week, I think, in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, and it's so cute. I go into more depth in that vlog, so I will put a link probably up above or down below to go check that one out. But that was the first book that I owned that I read, and I think I'm going to settle on 4.5 stars for that one, maybe 4 stars. It was really good. The next 2 kind of go together. They're the next 2 or the last 2 books in the Wheel of Time that I'm reading with Andrew, and it is Crown of Swords and Path of Daggers. That might be Crown of Daggers and Path of Swords. I don't know. These books, you can see the pictures. I'll cover up Wesley's face with the pictures of the books. Anyway, I'm reading these with Andrew, and honestly, I don't know what happened in what book, because we are just reading one, and as soon as we finish, we start the next one. And so it creates kind of a weird memory thing in my head where I don't know what happened when. So those 2, are still following Rand and his friends, and I can't say anything without giving other things away, but it's a Wheel of Time. Books 7 and 8, 6 and 7, 6 and 7, I think. We're halfway done. Okay, and then the last book that I owned, that I finished, was The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle. And this one was about a man living in England, I think. I read this at the very beginning of the month, so it's hard for me to remember all of it. Well, those details. I didn't know how I felt about this book, because he was a postal worker. And when he was forced into retirement, he decided that he was going to start living his life the way he wanted to. And that means that he wanted to come out and tell everybody that he was gay. But when he did it, everybody was like, oh yeah, we already know. Like, I don't know. It just felt so weird to me. And people were like, yeah, that's no big deal. Like, we already know. And they threw him a giant, coming out party. And he was very uncomfortable about the whole thing. And I just felt like nobody discussed with him what was going on before it happened. And he just, I don't know if he liked it. I couldn't tell, because he didn't seem like he did, but then also he seemed like he was happy about it. I don't know. It was weird. But then he goes on a quest to find his first love from high school that he fell in love with. And so that is what this one was about. I really liked it. It discusses a lot of themes that I think are not talked about all the time, especially when you have an older protagonist in a story like this. So I liked it. If you're ever looking for a prompt that feels like over 50 protagonist or something like that, this would definitely work for that. So that's it for the books that I owned. Okay, now we have arrived, and we've moved out the mattresses, and the room is empty.
Basically.
And dirty. So, first phase is cleanup, and then we will decorate. But I wanted you to see a before and after of a dorm room. Here we go. We're going to put baseboards down. And this is not a traditional dorm room, so don't think that it is. But we're going to put baseboards down. We're going to hang some curtains. Better than that. And that's what we're going to do. But first, let's talk about the books I got from the library. The first book that I got from the library is Watership Down. I also talked about that. Most of these, actually, I talked about in the video that just came out, the vlog, because it was about reading library books. Watership Down was fantastic. 4.5 stars. I loved it. It's like a kid's book about rabbits. The rabbits are have to leave their warren. They don't have to, but somebody gets a premonition that bad things are going to happen, and he convinces only a few people to go with him. I keep saying people, but it's rabbits. He convinces a few of them to go with him, and this is just about their adventures as they leave the warren and what happens and what they run into and the things that they have to deal with and the emotions that they feel for leaving, their home and starting a new place. And I really liked it. It's a good one if you need something about animals, if you need a book that involves traveling, for sure, and it's just really good. Okay, the second book that I finished from the library was Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. This is book 2 in the Finlay Donovan series. I liked it a lot better than the first one. I shouldn't say a lot better because honestly I gave them both 4 stars. I really liked the premise of the first book. I really did not like Finlay. In this one, I actually like her a little bit more, but I still really like the premise. So maybe I should give this like a 4.25. I just don't think it's good enough for 4.5 because there are some issues. I actually like Vero less in this book than I did in the first one, which is weird because I really liked her in the first book. Okay, and then the last 2 books that I read from my library were Good Girl Complex and A Brush with Love. These were both romance novels. I gave both of them a 3.5. And I was just sad about it because romance is usually my go-to genre where I know I'm going to like it. And I've read Elle Kennedy before and really enjoyed it. But Good Girl Complex really bothered me in a lot of ways. I didn't like the characters very much. I didn't like the situations they were in and the overall plot of the whole thing. I just didn't care for. And with A Brush with Love, I just felt like I didn't connect to anybody. And the best part of that book was the dealing with trauma and anxiety that the main character was going through, and less about the romance. I didn't like the romance. I thought that it was too, I don't know, like too easy or too, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was 2 people who clearly had some things to deal with. And I think the best part of that was actually watching them deal with the things that they had to deal with. And secondary was the romance. So I don't know. I just didn't connect to the characters in either one of those books. But those were the library books that I read for June. Well, we are done. It was a long, hot, sweaty process. My mother washed all of these walls, scrubbed them down. My other son mopped the walls and mopped the floor. And then we moved everything in. These are his sheets are on the bed. His TV is still not mounted yet. His computer is going to go here in his desk. So we put some contact paper on the shelf. He's got a temporary chair, but he's going to be getting another one. He's got his board on the wall for any school items that come up that he needs to put on there. And he's got his mini fridge where he can put drinks and his dresser for his clothes. So he is all set, and that is all we're going to be able to do today. So now I'm going to talk about the last set of books that I read this month, and they all came from Scribd. The first book from Scribd, and also the first book that I read this month, is Creation in Death from J.D. Robb. It's the only in-depth book I read all month, and it's actually messing me up on my schedule to finish by the end of the year. And I think I might actually do a whole month of in-depth, and I think I'm going to call it December in Death, just for the alliteration. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But anyway, Creation in Death was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I am sorry about this camera work. This hurts my arm holding this up. So y'all that hold your cameras up all the time, good job. Okay, sorry, I had to prop you up. Oh, also I forgot to show you this little thing right here. It's a remote control light. Can you make it flash in the background while I'm talking?
No, there you go.
Oh, okay. So that's just going to flash. I was like, okay, it's officially a dorm room. You have flashing lights in here. Okay, anyway. Creation in Death had the coolest serial killer. Why did I almost say superhero? It had the coolest serial killer, and I know that's a weird thing to say, but he was horrible. He tortured women and timed how long it took them to die, how much they could survive, and kept a record of it. And so anyway, Eve has to hunt him down. It was so good. Like, I still remember how much I liked it, even all the way at the end of the month. So it was good. The next book that I read on Scribd was Other Words for Home. This is a middle grade book, and it was suggested from Amy at A Star Reads as her middle grade pick for her game of bookish life. She does a spin every month for us, the viewers, to have their own spin. And so for June, she spun, I don't even remember what she spun, but this was the one she suggested, and so I picked it up and I read it. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I got it on Scribd, so I listened to it on audio, and it was just so good. If you're looking for a middle grade book, this definitely was enjoyable and a fast read, of course, like most middle grades are. Okay, I've got to stop saying it was just so good. So we follow Jude as she is moving from Syria to the United States as a middle schooler. And so definitely, if you're, like I said, if you're looking for a middle school book, if you have a middle schooler, that's just a great book about empathy and about people who are maybe not the same as you and learning all about living in a new country, moving to a new place, and finding other words for home. It was so good. Then I read my only nonfiction of the month, called Practical Happiness. I would not say that I loved this book. This was one of my NetGalley books, and I do not even remember requesting this on NetGalley, but when I went on there, it said I had it, and I was like, well, I guess I need to read that, but I didn't read it in time, so I got it on Scribd, and I read it on there. It is read by the author, and I don't think she does a great job. Normally, when I read nonfiction on audio, I love it when the authors do their own audio narration, but this time I just didn't like it. It seemed like there was a lot of very stilted reading, and she sounded like she was reading it. I don't know. I just did not enjoy the narration. I thought that the book was okay, but it was like common sense kind of thing sometimes. Like, it was like, if your brain is kind of spinning out of control, just get up and put yourself in another situation, or go for a walk, or take some deep breaths and do that kind of stuff. I do like that she has like a happiness society or happiness group. I don't know. She started this thing years ago where everybody talks about things that make them happy, and that's always cool. So I did like that part, but that was it. Now, the last book, to round out my 12, I almost had it perfectly, where I had 4 books that I owned, 4 books I got from the library, and 4 books from Scribd. Except the last book messed me up because it does not fit in any of those categories. I mean, technically, it was a book that I owned, at least for a little bit. It was the Traveling Bookshelf book, Don't Believe It. This book was so good. It's the first thing I've read by Donnelly, and I thought, what if I don't like this? Like, I'm pretty new to the thriller genre, the mystery kind of genre in general. And so I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't like it, or that it would be really cheesy or whatever. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I was the last person to read it as it traveled around. And so I got to see everybody else's thoughts as they were reading it and write my own thoughts in there. And I have sent it back to the original person, and she is looking through all the stuff. And so that was just such a fun thing to do, was the Traveling Bookshelf. We have had so much fun. I have had so much fun with all the books, reading them and passing them along, and seeing everybody's notes to me back in the books has just been fantastic. So we rounded it off with not a Scribd book, not a library book, and not an owned book, but a Traveling Bookshelf book. And that is it. I read 12 books in the month of June, and normally I read a lot more than that, but I have purposefully tried to slow down and do other things other than reading, branching out and doing other things. And so it has really been fun. The majority of June has been outside of our house. They came on June 1st and started packing up our house, and now it's about to be June 30th, and on July 1st, we will be leaving and moving to our new state, our new place where we'll be, and then it'll still be a whole nother week before we get our stuff in our house. So July 7th, I cannot wait. But that is going to do it for my June wrap up. That is everything that I read, and it was a lot of fun. I cannot wait to see what's going to happen in July. And with my new thing, I have a surprise TBR coming up that all the books take place in the new place that I'm about to move to. I'm so excited about it, and I will see you guys then. Bye.